Today's case takes place in Jushan Township, Nantou County, Taiwan. On the morning of May 12, 2003, a young couple hiking in the mountains to gather herbs made a shocking discovery: an unidentified corpse. This remote area was sparsely populated, so they rushed down the mountain to the only nearby restaurant. With trembling voices, they recounted their grim find to the restaurant owner, who promptly called the police. After an agonizing 15-minute wait, the police finally arrived at the scene. Guided by the couple, they made their way through the overgrown mountain path. Eventually, they discovered the body of a woman lying on a steep rock face. The victim appeared to be between 40 and 50 years old, wearing a dress but naked from the waist down, with no underwear. Initial observations suggested this was neither suicide nor accident. A quick examination confirmed this suspicion. The time of death was estimated to be just 2 days prior. The victim's left arm showed signs of being bound, indicating she may have been assaulted before her death. There was evidence of blunt force trauma to the back of her head. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Nantou County was known for its simple, peaceful way of life and had never before witnessed such a brutal crime. The pressing questions were, who killed this woman and why? To solve the case, investigators first needed to identify the victim. However, there were no identifying items found on the body. Her phone and purse were missing. The only clue was a series of 7 Arabic numerals written on her left palm. The police released a description of the victim, hoping to find relatives or friends of the deceased. Soon after, a man surnamed Du came forward to identify the victim. He confirmed she was his mother, Chen Ruiqin, age 48. She was a single mother of 3 who ran a successful karaoke bar in town. Notably, her designer handbag, watch, and necklace were all missing. This led police to initially suspect a robbery homicide. When checking the victim's bank withdrawal records, security footage showed a heavily disguised man attempting to withdraw money but failing due to incorrect PIN entries. Chen Ruiqin was known to have good business relationships and got along well with her neighbors, never making enemies. So who was this mysterious man? At this point, an investigator recalled the numbers on Chen Ruiqin's palm. He hypothesized, could these 7 digits be a phone number? Investigation revealed the number belonged to an apartment building in Mingxiang Township, Chiayi County. The owner was a man named Lin. However, a bigger issue arose. Mr. Lin was a landlord, and this building was his rental property. Hundreds of people lived there, all Lin's tenants. Any of them could have been the owner of that phone number. With such an extensive tenant list, the police were unsure where to begin. Fortunately, investigating the victim's social connections yielded results. On the day Chen Ruiqin disappeared, she had driven to Nangong Temple in Liujia Township, Tainan. She parked her car and left it with an attendant, then departed with an unidentified person. Although they didn't know the license plate, police could trace the car's route based on available information. By reviewing surveillance footage along the way, they hoped to locate the vehicle. After tireless investigation, the police finally found the car. The owner was named Chen Ruiqin, and this name also appeared on the tenant list provided by Mr. Lin. When the investigator saw this name, he immediately recognized it. More precisely, this was one of the most memorable suspects in his entire police career. This Chen Ruiqin was somewhat famous in Chiayi City, though in a rather peculiar way. Born in Chiayi County, he was considered talented in his youth. After retiring from the Air Force, Ruiqin joined the Mingxiang Oil Supply Center of the Chinese Petroleum Corporation as an oil truck driver. Later, through self-promotion, he became an engineer at the oil distribution center. On the surface, Ruiqin appeared a bit slow-witted, but he was actually quite adept at managing social relationships. Neighbors and colleagues all had a good impression of him. In the 1980s, he could earn 80,000 new Taiwan dollars, about 2,800 USD per month, placing him firmly in the high-income bracket. However, fate seemed to play cruel jokes on Ruiqin. While his career flourished, his family experienced successive tragedies. 2 wives and a son all died in accidents. In the eyes of others, Ruiqin seemed to be a lonely star cursed by fate. In 1974, he married 22-year-old Zeng Bixia. After marriage, they had a son and 2 daughters. They were considered a model family. The couple never argued and often took their children on outings. However, in 1985, an accident occurred. Bixia was hit by a falling ceiling fan and hospitalized. Although it sounded terrible, she only suffered a broken leg and mild concussion. Unexpectedly, on the 2nd day of her hospital stay, Zeng Bixia fell from her bed. This fall led to intracranial hemorrhage, and she died several days later despite emergency treatment. The hospital bed was only about 27 inches high, making such a fatal fall seem implausible. However, the Chen family could only accept this outcome. Due to Bixia's sudden death, Chen Ruiqin received 2.35 million new Taiwan dollars, about 82,000 USD in insurance compensation. Just 6 months after Bixia's death, he remarried to Wang Shuying, a divorced elementary school teacher with a son. Although this marriage began midway through both their lives, they seemed to find happiness and contentment together. However, fate once again played a cruel trick on this family. In 1988, a heartbreaking incident occurred when Ruiqin discovered his stepson associating with delinquents. Upon returning home, Ruiqin argued with the boy. Angered, the stepson ran away from home, but tragically fell down a staircase, hit his head, and died shortly after. After this incident, when facing Shuying, Ruiqin felt immense pain and regret. But what's done was done, and they could only console themselves by thinking it was the arrangement of fate. Time passed, and the Chen family seemed to return to normalcy. But by late 1995, tragedy struck again. Ruiqin's biological son, Chen Jianhong, was accidentally injured while out alone. He returned home complaining only of a headache without explaining how he was hurt. On the way to the hospital, he fell into a coma and died shortly after due to delayed treatment. Losing 2 sons in succession plunged the family into darkness. Neighbors were filled with sympathy, unable to understand why misfortune kept befalling them. Many advised the couple to check their home's feng shui, thinking something might be affecting their fate. But it didn't end there. Just a year later, Wang Shuying, Ruiqin's second wife, also met with a tragic accident. Perhaps still grief-stricken from losing her son, she was distracted while driving and crashed into a roadside guardrail. When Ruiqin received the call from the police, he learned his wife had already passed away. One might think this was the peak of the family's tragedies, but subsequent events would raise even more questions about the suspicious coincidences surrounding this family. In 1997, Ruiqin married for the 3rd time. Once again, he married a single mother with a son. Her name was Annihilator, and she owned a clothing store. Her son was in high school. Ruiqin, still appearing somewhat slow-witted, was very good to his wife's son, even offering rides on rainy days. With Ruiqin's stable job and high income, Liqin felt he was a man she could entrust her life to. Just when everyone thought this might be the start of a new life for them, tragedy struck again. Only a year later, Liqin's son, Chen Ruiqin, died in a traffic accident. Since the boy was older, the couple didn't closely monitor him, especially Ruiqin as the stepfather. On the day of the incident, the couple had gone to bed early. At midnight, when Ruiqin woke up to use the bathroom, he found his stepson lying on the sofa with a head wound. He quickly woke his wife, telling her to start the car while he carried the boy downstairs. Sadly, despite a night of emergency treatment at the hospital, they couldn't save him. After a simple funeral, life seemed to return to normal. But unlike previous incidents, a secret investigation into Chen Ruiqin's death was underway. The police in charge of the case were filled with suspicion. How could a severe traffic accident causing such a serious head injury not be reported to authorities immediately? Why did they wait until after the victim's death to report it? These details added to the mystery surrounding the series of tragedies in Ruiqin's family. According to the location of the traffic accident provided by Ruiqin, police found no surveillance cameras at the scene. Moreover, Chen couldn't specify exactly where the incident occurred. Notably, Ruiqin's bicycle showed no signs of collision. This raised a big question. How could someone so severely injured cycle home? Faced with a barrage of questions from the police, Ruiqin suddenly changed his statement. He said that when he discovered his son on the sofa, the boy was already unconscious, and everything he said before was just speculation. He assumed his son must have been in a car accident. However, these new explanations only made the situation more confusing and illogical. The situation became even more suspicious when police checked Zeng Bix's insurance records. They discovered that just 3 months before the accident, Ruiqin had purchased accident insurance for his son from 5 different insurance companies, totaling millions in coverage. This was puzzling as Zeng Bixia was just an ordinary student, not involved in any dangerous activities. With a monthly salary of 80,000 new Taiwan dollars, about 2,800 USD, Ruiqin was spending 20,000 to 30,000 NTD, 700 to 1,050 USD on his son's insurance premiums, which seemed unreasonable. Notably, Chen Ruiqin's wife knew nothing about these insurance policies. Regarding this, Ruiqin defended himself by saying life is full of unexpected accidents. This explanation, coming from someone who had experienced so many family tragedies, sounded quite convincing. He argued that his previous losses had made him more sensitive about insurance. Additionally, he claimed that recommendations from friends in the insurance industry led him to purchase multiple policies for his stepson. To prove his innocence, Ruiqin agreed to take a lie detector test. However, the results were not as expected, as he failed to pass some crucial questions. Previously, each incident had occurred at different times and was handled by separate units, so no one noticed anything unusual. However, when the police conducted a comprehensive investigation, they discovered suspicious similarities between the accidents. Notably, most victims died from severe head trauma, with causes reported as traffic accidents or falls. Another important detail was that, except for the case of Wang Shuying, his second wife, Ruiqin was always the only person present at the scene when these incidents occurred. These factors made it difficult to explain the events simply as life's uncertainties. Faced with police suspicion, Ruiqin remained very calm. However, at this point, the media began extensively reporting on his alleged murders of his wives and children for insurance fraud. This completely disrupted the investigation's rhythm. Before the police could react, Ruiqin proactively contacted reporters, tearfully accusing the police of framing him, while pressuring insurance companies to quickly pay out claims without delay. Thus, he managed to sway public opinion. Subsequently, the police used methods like wiretapping and surveillance to investigate Ruiqin's friends and relatives, but still couldn't find any evidence. Theoretically, with such a high salary, Ruiqin shouldn't have been short of money. Moreover, even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. His own son had died in one of these accidents. Due to lack of conclusive evidence, the investigation had to be temporarily suspended. Ruiqin finally received insurance compensation, though only 160,000 new Taiwan dollars, about 5,600 USD, a modest sum compared to previous payouts, likely due to the suspicions surrounding this case. By this point, over 13 years, Ruiqin had received a total of 20 million new Taiwan dollars, about 700,000 USD, in insurance payouts from the deaths of his family members. Although he had temporarily escaped legal consequences, his wife Chen began to lose trust in him. Perhaps unable to come to terms with her son's death, or possibly fearing for her own life, she no longer dared to live with Ruiqin. Consequently, she initiated a divorce. From then on, the tragedies in the Chen family seemed to cease. Ruiqin never married again, and naturally no one dared to do so. It wasn't until 3 years later, when Chen Yiling's body was discovered on a cliff, that he reappeared in the public eye as a suspect. In fact, although Ruiqin didn't remarry, he wasn't idle. He began dating, finding girlfriends, and using various excuses to take money from them. On May 10th, 2003, he happened to meet Chen Yiling. Upon discovering her good financial situation, he pursued her fervently. After years of dating various women, he was very experienced in this. Yiling was quickly charmed and agreed to go hiking with him in Jushan. This time, with the aid of technology, the police gathered ample evidence. Not only did they have the phone number in Chen Yiling's palm and road surveillance footage, but they also thoroughly investigated her call history. In the 3 days before her death, the same phone number appeared multiple times in her call history. Police quickly traced this number to a public phone booth. The surveillance camera next to the booth clearly captured Ruiqin's face. Additionally, police obtained surveillance video of him using Yiling's bank card to withdraw money. Staff at the checkpoint on the day of the incident also confirmed Ruiqin's identity. With this concrete evidence, the police could proceed with the arrest. However, the next problem they faced was that Ruiqin had disappeared, his phones all switched off. It wasn't until May 22, 2003, that the police finally intercepted a call from him. This call was to his girlfriend, Xiao Suhui. In the call, he said he was injured and hospitalized, asking her to come take care of him. It turned out he was maintaining relationships with both Suhui and Yiling. The police quickly went to the hospital to make the arrest. They found him lying in a hospital bed, his body covered in bruises, appearing severely injured. Suhui, sitting beside him, was startled and trembling when the police suddenly burst in. The police quickly noticed the Rolex watch on Suhui's wrist, which belonged to Yiling. They also found Yiling's phone, wallet, and 2 blank checks on Ruiqin. During the subsequent interrogation, Ruiqin remained very calm. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he had to admit to killing Yiling, but claimed it wasn't premeditated murder. He said they had an argument while driving, and an accident occurred during the dispute in the car. The police, confronted with such a psychologically strong and cunning man, couldn't help but sigh, understanding why he had easily evaded justice before. On the other hand, the police investigation made a new breakthrough. The deaths of Ruiqin's 2 wives and 3 sons had netted him nearly 20 million new Taiwan dollars, about 700,000 USD, in insurance payouts. Despite his high salary, strangely, his lifestyle wasn't wealthy. He had no properties, cars, or investments in his name. So where had all this money gone? Following this line of inquiry, the police finally uncovered Chen Ruiqin's true face. The seemingly honest, slow-witted man turned out to be a gambling addict. Needing large sums for gambling, he had started borrowing from loan sharks. Unable to repay these high-interest loans, the injuries on his body were actually inflicted by debt collectors from these illegal lenders. This time, Chen Ruiqin finally stopped evading and confessed to the entire process of killing Yiling. She had happily gone on a trip with him, unaware she wouldn't return. On the way, Ruiqin casually offered her some liver protection pills he claimed to take regularly. Unsuspecting, Yiling took 2 pills and quickly fell asleep. In reality, these weren't liver protection pills at all, but sleeping pills. When Ruiqin stopped the car at a cliff, he first sexually assaulted Yiling, then robbed her of all personal belongings, and finally pushed her off the cliff. He had planned for Yiling to fall into a deep ravine, leaving no trace, but unexpectedly, her fall was interrupted by a rock ledge, leading to her discovery. Although he admitted to the murder, the police weren't satisfied. They knew Yiling wasn't his first victim, but no matter how they questioned him, Ruiqin wouldn't admit to killing for insurance money. At this point, the police realized that continuing to interrogate him this way wasn't effective. They needed to find a key point to break through Ruiqin's psychological defenses. Subsequently, they conducted a more detailed investigation into every aspect of his life. Through their inquiries, the police discovered that Ruiqin greatly valued ancestral worship. Additionally, the Yiling case alone was enough to sentence him to death. Therefore, they told him they could help arrange his ancestral worship and would protect his 2 daughters from media harassment. This finally led Ruiqin to reveal all the horrific secrets about killing his family. According to his confession, except for his second wife, who truly died in an accident, the others were all killed by him. Although he seemed very honest, the police still doubted his statement. They found the death of his second wife, Wang Shuying, still very suspicious. Wang Shuying had crashed into a roadside guardrail on August 19, 1996, resulting in a fatal head injury. Strangely, the car had almost no visible collision damage. She had an unexplained 2.4-inch wound on the right side of her head. Moreover, there were no brake marks on the road. The case took a dramatic turn in June 2003 when the police found a key witness, a colleague surnamed Guo, who had given Ruiqin a ride near the scene of Wang Shuying's accident. Faced with this new evidence, Ruiqin finally confessed. The horrifying truth was revealed. Wang Shuying's death wasn't a traffic accident, but a premeditated murder. Ruiqin had argued with her in the car, then hit her head with a wooden stick before deliberately crashing the car into the guardrail to stage an accident. Furthermore, Ruiqin confessed to the death of his first wife, Zeng Bixia. Although she had initially been injured by a falling fan, her actual death resulted from Ruiqin violently slamming her head against a wall during an argument before her hospital discharge. Panicked by his actions, he staged the scene to look like an accidental fall from the hospital bed. Initially, this unintentional killing tormented Ruiqin. However, when he received a large insurance payout, his mentality changed completely. From that point, Ruiqin gradually descended into a life of crime, becoming a remorseless killer who carefully planned subsequent murders to profit from insurance payouts. Whenever he accrued large debts, Ruiqin would think of the easy money from insurance claims. Finally, he couldn't resist trying a second time. At this point, he wasn't yet deranged enough to harm his biological son, so he chose to deliberately provoke his stepson. During an argument, he forcefully slammed the boy's head against a wall, then staged it as an accident. After receiving another large insurance payout, Chen Ruiqin completely fell into a cycle of evil, even turning against his own son. When his biological son Chen Jianhong joined a gang and repeatedly ignored warnings, Ruiqin fatally struck his head with a rock. He later beat Wang Shuying to death with a stick and staged a car accident. His second stepson, Chen Zongqing, was also killed by him, which was again staged as an external car accident injury. When Yan Liqin got out of the car to retrieve something, he smashed Zongqing's head against the sharp corner of a stair railing. By this time, both the police and insurance companies were becoming suspicious, making Ruiqin realize he couldn't use this method anymore. He then lay low for a period. Afterward, he began dating middle-aged women, scamming them for money and favors until the Yiling incident exposed him. The ill-gotten gains from these women and his monthly salary were all lost to gambling. Most chillingly, the police found a notebook among his possessions listing the birth dates and death dates of all his family members. During interrogation, it was revealed that he used these as numbers for buying lottery tickets. As the impact of these cases grew, many people began voluntarily providing new leads to the police. The authorities were shocked to realize that the number of people who died at Chen Ruiqin's hands might far exceed 6. Wang Shuying's close friend, Huang Xinyi, had disappeared in June 1995 after receiving a phone call. She had previously lent money to Ruiqin. After the case was exposed, her family began to suspect her disappearance was unusual. Another of Ruiqin's former colleagues, Wang Shumei, who had been close to him, also suddenly disappeared in 1998, not even returning home when her husband and eldest son died. A woman from Chiayi City was also suspected to have vanished due to her close relationship with Ruiqin. However, when faced with the disappearances of these women, Ruiqin consistently denied any involvement. Before the trial, Ruiqin repeatedly changed his testimony and even offered 4 million new Taiwan dollars, about 140,000 USD, to bribe the police. However, all these efforts were in vain. In 2004, he was sentenced to 5 death penalties and 1 life imprisonment. But in the final trial, the judge considered that Ruiqin's confession to killing 5 family members qualified for sentence reduction, so the 5 death sentences were commuted to 20 years in prison. However, the death sentence for killing Chen Yiling remained unchanged. On April 19, 2013, Chen Ruiqin met his 2 daughters. Crying, he said, "Dad was wrong, I'm sorry." But his daughters kept their heads down, never looking at him. Amidst his sobs, they turned and left without saying a word. Before his execution, after eating his last meal, Chen Ruiqin's body went limp as he was dragged to the execution ground. With a single gunshot, the life of this criminal with a human face but a beast's heart came to an end. After his death, no one wanted to claim his body. Even organ donation was rejected by all hospitals, fearing contamination by his evil deeds. That concludes today's story. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you in the next video.